Magic Johnson made $40 million across his entire NBA career. 13 seasons, 5 championships, 3 MVPs. But Magic didn't retire with only $40 million. After he left the NBA court for the last time, he then built a $1.5 billion empire all from scratch. No tech platform, no family money, no MBA. So the real question isn't how is Magic Johnson rich? The real question is how does a point guard from Lansing, Michigan turn $40 million into $1.5 billion? And what's the actual playbook that made it all happen? All right, let's get into it. Phase 1, the endorsement trap. Why fame doesn't equal wealth. To see what Magic did differently, you have to start by looking at what every other athlete was doing at the time. In the 80s and 90s, the athlete money model was simple. Win games, sign endorsements, collect checks, repeat. Shoes, soda, fast food, cereal boxes, commercials. On the surface, it looks like true wealth. Here's the problem with endorsements. The brand pays you once, then they keep every dollar of upside forever. You're just renting them your face. The bigger you get, the more valuable their product becomes, and the less of that value you keep. You're the growth engine, but they're the owner. And Magic learned this the hard way. He comes into the league in 1979. Converse, Adidas, and a barely public Nike show up. Converse offers the biggest guaranteed check, about $100 grand a year. Nike can't match the cash, so Phil Knight offers him stock options. Magic takes the cash and signs with Converse, and later states, when you're black and you're broke, you take the most money. From where he was standing at the time, with no cushion and no safety net, the guaranteed income from Converse was the safest option, and those are in his words. That Nike equity today would be worth somewhere between $1.5 and $5 billion added to his total net worth. Most people would tell that story as a tragedy. Johnson treated it as a learning moment, the most expensive learning moment he would ever have. Lesson: equity beats income every time. Check stop, ownership compounds. So in 1987, 4 years before he retired, he sets up Magic Johnson Enterprises, a holding company, a vehicle whose only job is to turn celebrity influence into ownership instead of fees. He starts the company while he's still playing. The first swing, it's a failure. He opens Magic 32 shop. Hats, jackets, gear he personally likes, and within a year, he's down 200 grand and shuts it down. Key takeaway: never make your business about you. Just because you like red doesn't mean fill the store with red, unless your customer also wants red. This is where the true pivot happens. Johnson stops building for himself and starts building for the customer. Specifically, the customers nobody else was even trying to serve. Phase 2, the urban arbitrage. In the early 90s, corporate America had a simple belief. Inner city neighborhoods were bad business. Too risky, too unpredictable, low spending habits. Result, big chains stayed in suburbs and affluent districts, and entire zip codes were left without premium theaters, coffee, retail, or restaurants. Magic Johnson thought that wasn't just morally wrong, it was also wrong financially. He looked around and saw millions of people, steady demand, and almost no competition. And when a market is ignored, it's usually underpriced. He first tested this idea with movie theaters. In 1994, he partners with Sony to open a 12-screen multiplex in Baldwin Hills, a black neighborhood in LA the majors had skipped. Sony's nervous. Conventional wisdom says it won't work. After opening, it quickly becomes the top-grossing theater in the entire Sony Lowe's chain, not just in LA, in the whole network. Now he can walk into any boardroom and say, "You're leaving money on the table, and I can show you where." Then comes Starbucks, 1998. Magic sits down with Howard Schultz. The pitch is brutally simple. Urban residents like coffee too. Schultz says, "We don't franchise." Magic says, "I'm not asking to franchise. I want a joint venture, 50-50. We both put up capital, we both share the upside." He's not asking for a licensing check or an endorsement fee. He's asking to be on the cap table. Over 12 years, their joint venture, Urban Coffee Opportunities, opens 125 Starbucks stores in urban neighborhoods. Magic tweaks the model. Bigger floor plans so people can linger, music that matches the block, menu items turned into local tastes. The store's quality is Starbucks, but the experience feels like the neighborhood. Some stores begin to even outperform suburban ones. In 2010, Johnson sells his stake. Estimated profit, $75 to $100 million. The cash is nice, but the real asset he gained is proof of concept. He now has a national chain and a 9-figure exit as a case study. Every future partner, investor, or Fortune 500 exec can point to that deck and say, this plan works. If you're still here, you're not just nostalgic for the 80s basketball. You're trying to understand how one good career turns into a billion-dollar stack of businesses. That's what this channel is Phase 4, we break down operator empires as systems and how the money actually moves. So if you want more deep dives like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Phase 3, partnership, capitalism at scale. The Starbucks run taught Johnson something critical: how to price his role in a deal. Magic's pattern is simple. Find a giant that already has the machine. Logistics, brand, systems. Figure out where they're blind and trade his unfair advantage for equity and control, not just a cameo. For him, the blind spot was always the same: access and trust in minority communities, plus access to diversity-mandated contracts. He can get into rooms their sales teams can't. He can be credible where their ads aren't. That is some of the biggest leverage you could have. So he doesn't show up as a celebrity spokesperson. He shows up as a minority owner with a key people can't replicate. In 2006, he goes to Sodexo, a $20+ billion global food services and facilities company. The rational move for someone in his position would be a small cut and a nice title. Magic negotiates 51% majority control. Why would Sodexo say yes? Because there's a business they literally can't operate without a certified minority-owned partner. Government contracts, corporate diversity procurement. Sodexo Magic solves that for them. For Magic, it's instant scale. He doesn't have to build a national food service machine. He plugs into one that already exists. Today, Sodexo Magic does over $1.1 billion a year in revenue and employs more than 7,000 people. Around that window, he makes a much quieter but just as important bet. In 2012, he takes a stake in a Florida-managed care company serving Medicaid and Medicare patients. Low-income, government program customers most big players don't know how to serve well. Same thesis: ignored market, messy operations, real opportunity. Membership grows from roughly 30,000 to over 200,000. In 2015, Anthem buys it for about $1 billion. Magic reportedly makes around 16 times on his initial money. That exit changes the scoreboard. He's no longer just a smart operator with some wins. He now has a real liquidity event, the kind that lets you write a $50 million check without even blinking, which is exactly what he does. In 2012, Guggenheim Partners pulls together a group to buy the LA Dodgers for $2 billion, the largest sports franchise sale ever. Magic puts in about $50 million for roughly 2.5%. He spends decades worth of relationship capital to help revive the brand. Today, Forbes values the stake around $6.8 billion, which means his stake is worth roughly $156 million. Not bad on a $50 million entry. But again, the money wasn't the main thing he got out of this deal. The deal sits him next to Guggenheim's Mark Walter in the owner's box, game after game. That relationship is exactly what sets up the deal that actually pushes Magic across the billionaire line. Phase 4, the billionaire threshold. In 2015, Magic buys a controlling, north of 60% stake in EquiTrust Life Insurance company. Seller, Guggenheim Partners. Same Mark Walter he's watching Dodgers games with. The Dodger box seats weren't just about baseball. They were about building enough trust that Guggenheim would let him take the whole operating company off their hands. At acquisition, EquiTrust manages about $14.5 billion in assets. They sell fixed and indexed annuities through a network of nearly 24,000 independent agents. It's boring on the surface, but underneath, it's the exact model Warren Buffett has used for decades. Here's the mechanism: float. Policyholders pay premiums now, claims come later, sometimes decades later, and in the gap between now and later, the company invests that money. As long as you price products correctly and manage risk, you earn a spread on a huge asset base that keeps growing as new premiums show up. You're not chasing daily returns, you're compounding spread quietly for a long period of time. By 2024, EquiTrust assets under management grow from about $14.5 billion to about $33.6 billion, more than 2x in 9 years. And Magic holds the majority. It's the largest Black-owned insurance company in American history. This is the asset that actually makes him a billionaire. Starbucks, Sodexo Magic, Simply Healthcare, the Dodgers, all important to the Magic Johnson portfolio, but they're steps on the staircase. The real leap comes when he uses all of that credibility and capital to buy into an insurance engine at scale. He uses a theater to prove a thesis, uses the thesis to land Starbucks, uses Starbucks to land Sodexo Magic, uses Sodexo Magic and Simply Healthcare to get real capital, uses that capital to sit at the Dodgers table with Guggenheim, uses Guggenheim access to buy EquiTrust, uses EquiTrust to let compounding do the heavy lifting, and he keeps going. In 2015, he co-founds JLC Infrastructure, one of the only 100% minority-controlled infrastructure funds in the country. They invest in LaGuardia's Terminal B, Denver International, and JFK 401k's $9.5 billion new Terminal 1. Fund 2 closes at $925 million. Then in 2023, he writes a roughly $240 million check for 4% of the Washington Commanders in a $6 billion deal. Again, record price for a U.S. sports team. He calls it his biggest business achievement. Forbes now values the team around $7.6 billion. On paper, that makes his stake worth $304 million, roughly a $64 million gain in under 2 years. It's not random wins, it's a self-reinforcing system. Magic Johnson made $40 million playing basketball. He turned it into roughly $1.5 billion by refusing to stay an employee in his own story. He demanded ownership. Trade your unique leverage for equity and control instead of a bigger fee. Use one proof point to buy into bigger deals. Repeat until compounding takes over. Now, if this breakdown helped you see your own moves more clearly, hit subscribe. There's no other show on the internet quite like this, and I want you to go watch the next breakdown, where we'll walk through another operator who turned a nice career into a serious money machine. I'm Buster, and I'll see you next time. Peace.